it's a new era in CFB to start off this year, put on full display.
My take on this game is simple. I know some people will be upset about it. Good riddance to the Pac-12.
Can you do it in terms of the week to week to week?
I don't see a pathway for this team to miss the college football playoffs.
We want to make sure you have those best bets in the entirety of our betting cards.
That was
thinking! But he had that program was already going there!
Only on SportsGrid.
Crew has already clinched the National League Central. They're 2 games behind LA, that being the Dodgers, trying to maybe get the 2nd seed in the National League standings for October.
Both of these teams have a chance to score some runs against these pitching matchups, so maybe another over, even though we do have a playoff atmosphere. And yes, Milwaukee did clinch, but there's still an eye on the prize of we might be able to chase down the Dodgers and also the Phillies to get one of those buys.
The early line. Only on SportsGrid.
Brian Daboll has been feeling it. He's in a foul mood. He's having stare-downs with Pat Leonard and everything else.
John Mara wants Brian Daboll to go and get the next quarterback. They tried to get the next quarterback. We all watched it on Hard Knocks. They couldn't end up with Daniels. They couldn't end up with May. So they said, okay, we'll run it back a year. We'll go get neighbors, and we'll tolerate.
Pharrell Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid.
Welcome to hour number 3, our third and final live right here on this Thursday on the early line on SportsGrid. Here is the theme for this third and final hour. Thursday night football deep dive and breakdown. We'll give you the proper perspective with Tom Vecchio a little bit later on. But DRS, before we get to Thursday night football, we will also make sure you are set for the final 4 days. Technically 5 now with the Mets and the Braves postponed until Monday, but the final few days of this MLB regular season. Our insider, Craig Mish, will join us in just a little bit to look at what is still left, what is at stake, what remains to end out this MLB regular season. All of that in this third and final hour.
A lot to still be decided, a lot more money to still be made, and also jockeying for those positions, which certainly will be important. And also talking about jockeying for position in the NFL's NFC East tonight. Yeah, that's the Dallas Cowboys and the New York Giants picking that up as well to see if the Dallas Cowboys can even up their record, move forward with their season, or are we looking at, trying to get to the tarmac, Mr. McCarthy? Why don't you just stick around here a little bit longer, let the team fly back to Dallas without you?
I mean, listen, he's not under contract beyond this season, so that could be the case if the Cowboys falter. And because the line has worked to Dallas, we are seeing another 5.5-point spread. What does that mean? How is it influencing the public for tonight's Thursday night football game between the G-men and the boys? That was the question to all of you in Fade the Public. So, DRS, before we get to the results of this poll, I told you I would be keeping track of the public responses, and if we really should be fading the public for the standalone Monday and Thursday night football games where we ask a best bet or what is more likely, some question of the sort. It was a little bit complicated on Monday because we asked the public, money line winners, what do you like tonight in terms of a parlay? Of course, they went Buffalo and Cincy. The Bengals lost outright to Washington. So in the Fade the Public polls, the public now 3-3 and even 500, which leads us to tonight's votes and results. At SportsGrid on Twitter, what is the best bet for Thursday night football? Dallas laying the number. The Giants is the home underdog. Points over 45.5, or we stay under 45 and a hook. And most of the public, DRS, going with Dallas, laying 5.5, more than 44% of the votes back in the boys.
Yeah, how about this too? Over and under now updated here on X. 45.5 over, 45.5, under 45.5. They're tied at 17% apiece. So it's a draw there. But I do believe the public should be on the right side tonight, a -5.5 on the Dallas Cowboys, just looking as the better football team. The tough part about it, too, is the expectations of Dallas being better than the New York Giants. But the past 2 weeks, we don't know actually how good the New Orleans Saints are since they lost to the Philadelphia Eagles, but it looks like they're going to be competent and maybe a 10-win team. Not so bad a loss, but you got blown out for the Cowboys. Last week, we expect the Ravens to be in the playoffs. So they lose to the Ravens. Not a great look because technically they were getting blown out until late. A couple of touchdowns here, both of those at home. Maybe it's best that they do get out of Jerry World and AT&T Stadium, flying up to New York here. We know in the New York metro area, a lot of Dallas Cowboys fans will be in the stands tonight, and I'm going to back them at the 5.5-point price. 44% of the public went that way. I'll agree with them.
Make your way from Long Island, cross a couple of rivers, and get to East Rutherford, New Jersey tonight to back your Cowboys, and best of luck to Ohio State on Saturday as well. DRS, as we look at the Fade the Public poll here, I would agree with the public here laying the number with Dallas. However, the New York Giants, who have often been a favorite in 20 games since the start of last season, an underdog in 19 of the 20. This will be the 19th consecutive game as a dog for Brian Daboll's boys tonight. They've been pretty good keeping games competitive, at least based on relative expectation. 9-9-1 against the spread. 2 games this year, or all 3 games this year for New York as an underdog. 1.5 dog week 1 at home. They got absolutely shell-shocked by Minnesota. Probably should have won week 2 in Washington if they just had a kicker on the roster, and then won outright last week by a ton against the Browns. These 2 NFC East divisional foes, both 1-2, each with their only win of the year on the road in Cleveland, outright as the underdog. But, Donnie, I mentioned the 5.5-point spread. Are we forgetting the trends to start the year of the dog in the NFL? Through 3 weeks so far this season, we have seen 16 teams be an underdog of 5.5 points or greater. 14-2 against the number, 10 outright victories. The Giants are getting 5.5 now, despite opening as a 4.5-point underdog earlier in the week.
And also, like, the competency of the New York Giants. We didn't know if it was going to be there this year. I do think Brian Daboll's a good coach, but they just don't have a lot of talent. But let's understand this. They lost opening day to the Minnesota Vikings, who, quite frankly, might be the best team in the NFL right now. Week number 2, if they just brought a kicker to Washington, they win that football game and improve to 1-1. And last week, going on the road against the Cleveland Browns, winning that game, they should be 2-1 right now, going up against the 1-2 Dallas Cowboys, maybe changing the trajectory of the Giants season if they could win that game outright. But it's always still comes down to this. It's Daniel Jones at quarterback here. Do we expect greatness out of him? No. Who's going to bail him out? A rookie wide receiver repeatedly tonight to try to knock off the Dallas Cowboys? That's what's tough to wrap your heads around. But also, as we talked earlier in the show, there's not great ground games that you can lean on. It's not as if, Saquon Barkley is back with the New York Giants. You say, short week here. We see that Dallas is susceptible to the run. Last week, they got hammered by the Baltimore Ravens. You do have a mobile quarterback in Daniel Jones, but you don't really have. Singletary's an okay running back, not one of the top, let's just say, 10 or 15 backs in football. That could have been an advantage that you could have used against the Dallas Cowboys, which I don't think will be there tonight. And also, as we talked about so many times already, Ben, the accountability tonight of the Dallas Cowboys from what they showed, unacceptable to have back-to-back performances at home where they basically no-showed here. They're looking for an improved performance. And Micah Parsons, where you been, man? Tonight is your night. You're going up against 2 tackles you could probably be able to beat here. And Daniel Jones, who's known for a strip sack fumble or 2 in his career, maybe he makes that big defensive imprint tonight, and that happens.
Listen, I want to bet Micah Parsons over his number. Daniel Jones has been sacked 8 times, including 5, the only game at home in MetLife against the Minnesota Vikings. No sack props out just yet, just players to record an INT so far. In terms of the total, 45.5 is the number. Seems a little bit steep for a short week Thursday night football game. The Cowboys, though, one of 2 teams, along with the Ravens, that have been over in all 3 games this year and going over for Dallas by an average margin of nearly double digits, 9.8 points per game. The Giants enter week 4 as one of the 8 teams in a season where points are at a premium that have been under in all 3 games. It's really interesting, Donnie, to look at the props tonight, because we'll talk quarterbacks later on. We'll give you the prop perspective with Tom Vecchio. I will have a keen eye on both of the top targets. I think it's a big night for CeeDee Lamb, And I think when you look at Malik Neighbors, this will be an interesting time for the rookie wide receiver out of LSU. Everybody knows the ball is going to Neighbors. He has been targeted 37 times already this year, leading the National Football League. Double-digit targets in each of the last 2 weeks. How much emphasis will the New York Giants put on getting the ball to Neighbors? And thus, how much will Dallas be looking to stop that tonight?
Yeah, and I don't know. Dallas' secondary hasn't been all that good to start this season, so waiting on some injury guys at this point. I mean, I don't know if they're going to get better overnight at that point, but we are taking a look at a guy that you're expecting to get 10-plus targets regardless of who he's going up against, and then some of those scraps, as we said, could fall down to Wan'Dale Robinson. And also in that last graphic put up, when I talk about the Giants just not being all that talented overall, there's a guy on that screen that you could have put any name up there, and I don't even know if I would have understood who that is. Theo Johnson. Come on now, Giants.
I believe that's the tight end, right? I think he's from Penn State.
You could have told me it was a kicker, and I would have no idea who that guy was.
You know it's not a kicker. Who is the Giants kicker? Is it Graham Gano? Who did they sign last week? Oh, yeah, Greg Joseph. Greg the leg. All right. Anyway, MLB final week next.
Right here with you on Pro Football Today on SportsGrid. Odds in motion, trying to see what lines have moved throughout the week.
Never felt more comfortable in this set than I do for this year. I am ready. I'm just getting angry. The hot takes are going to be here all long, people. What in the world is going on in Miami, Donnie?
It's not particularly anything to shy away from just because many people are on top of it.
Hot take.
I think this line is asking you once again to take New Orleans.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
Simply put, the only way to bet this is over/under win total. I love Tyronn Lue. I think he's one of the 5 best coaches in the league. But my dear friend George Sorless told us to me a long time ago, you can't win if you don't got the talent. Unfortunately, I don't think the Clippers have the talent to match up.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Brian Dable has been feeling it. He's in a foul mood. He's having stare downs with Pat Leonard and everything else.
John Mara wants Brian Dable to go and get the next quarterback. They tried to get the next quarterback. We all watched it on Hard Knocks. They couldn't end up with Daniels. They couldn't end up with May. So they said, okay, we'll run it back a year. We'll go get Neighbors, and we'll tolerate.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
The final week of the MLB regular season, and what would have been only 4 days remaining in the race to 162. We actually have 5 with the postponement between the Mets and the Braves as they will play a doubleheader in Atlanta on Monday. So Craig Mish, who joins us now, our MLB insider, the host of Newswire, 5 more days remaining, Craig, in this Major League Baseball regular season. The excitement level out of you is what?
Yeah, look, I'm all for fun conspiracy theories, but why not make the baseball season an extra day? I mean, I don't see anything wrong with it. And look, the odds of getting both of those games played Monday, I think that's slim. But I do think there's better than a 50-50 shot that the Mets and Braves will at least have to play one game on Monday.
Oh, only one? Would they just play 161 if the game is not necessary?
Yeah, of course.
Oh.
Of course. Yeah.
See, this is why he's our insider. That's why he is here. All right, Craig. Because unfortunately we won't see you tomorrow. And I guess Monday technically will still be the regular season, but you're not going to be here Monday. Is this our final time going all around the bases in the regular season? It will continue into October and the playoffs, do you not fear. But I think for one last time in 162, the regular season, we touch them all. It's time for the daily bases. Oh, that's a huge miss to not include Lisi yelling Craig in what is the final daily basis of the regular season. And Craig still with 4 or 5 days remaining in this MLB campaign. A lot to figure out. Who's going to be the 1 seed in the American League? Will the Yankees finally claim the American League East divisional crown? And how will the final 2 spots of the American League wild card shake out? All 4 of those teams, the Royals, the Tigers, the Twins, and the Mariners, got a win on Wednesday. Craig, do you see anything changing in the final 4 days of this MLB regular season in terms of how the standings lay out right now?
Not really. The wild card, I still think is a little bit up for grabs here. I would not eliminate the Twins completely. I think Detroit is going to get in. They play the White Sox this weekend. So, I mean, barring some catastrophe, and we've seen catastrophes before, you would assume that the Tigers will win at the minimum 2 out of 3. That gets them in the postseason. So the question is, for the Twins, can they count on winning, and can they count on the Braves pushing the Royals out? Because that's kind of what would happen. The Braves are going to need those games this weekend.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of where I stand with it. So I do think it probably stays the same. Also, Baltimore could be playing for nothing this weekend too. So that definitely gives the Twins a little bit of a leg out. I cannot eliminate the Twins just yet. Clearly, they have to win pretty much every game the rest of the season.
Craig, if we look forward tonight and you're playing some blackjack, you definitely would be splitting some aces. Corbin Burns on the mound tonight for the Orioles, taking on Garrett Cole, a favorite to the Yankees at a minus 146 number, and a total of 8. Are champagne bottles popping tonight in the Bronx with the Yankees?
I mean, look, Judge is just so hot right now, but this is the equalizer, having Corbin Burns. I think both teams would tell you right now they do not want to be in a situation, either of them, going into Sunday where both teams need to win in order to get to like the bye or get to the division championship. So, I mean, this could determine it tonight. I mean, it's obvious there. If the Yankees win, then they win the division. So, look, my guess is it comes right down to the wire. But, I mean, honestly, Donnie, do you want to bet on the Yankees up a run in the 9th inning? I don't want to. I'll just stay away from this game.
I have bet it minus 146. Market is moving on FanDuel, greater than 10 cents of movement. If Craig Mish says no, Donnie right side and I say yes. Let's flip it over to the National League playoff picture, Craig. Still something to be decided at the top between the Dodgers and the Phils. LA half-game advantage over Philadelphia for that number 1 seed. But, of course, our focus is on those final 3 teams. We know the Mets and the Braves postponed until the scheduled doubleheader on Monday. The D-backs avoid the sweep against the Giants yesterday. The Mets and Arizona tied for those final 2 spots in the National League wild card. Craig, what chance would you give the Braves of catching either of those 2 teams?
Oh, well, look, they could clearly catch the Mets because they can now go into Monday being down and just having to beat them twice to get in. Yep. It seems like a tall task, but you have it in front of you. And, you know, depending on how they manage Sale, I know he was supposed to pitch yesterday, you may end up having him for one of those games. And I think the Braves will obviously go all in those final 2. But, look, the Braves have just shown us all season long, unfortunately, that as well as they have played at different times, my guess is at some point between now and Monday, they're going to play in a game and not score a run. It's a really bizarre offense, and they've been shut out way too many times for my liking. But again, still up for grabs. Anything can happen. But as we talked about before, there would be no reason to play game 162. And on top of it, if let's just hypothetically say the Mets end up winning the wild card on Monday in the first game, Major League Baseball can't ask them to play a second game. They got to get out of there and go play their wild card series somewhere else. So, you know, that's 162 will not happen.
How the West has been won tonight, we might find out. It could be the Dodgers. It could be San Diego hanging on, trying to press them over the final couple games of the season. Musgrove versus Buehler tonight, and a favorite. It's actually roughly a pick'em, a -116, -102 split here with a total of 8.5. Can the Padres extend their season to try to maybe take down the Dodgers, or the Dodgers wrap this one up tonight?
Yeah, the Dodgers probably end up winning the division. I mean, that's fair to say. But the Padres have given them all they can handle. I don't think there's any doubt. If you have the right guy on the mound in Musgrove tonight, he's a big game pitcher. He's pitched in really big games for them in the past. He'll pitch in really big games in the postseason too, and I would back him in those. The Dodgers guys right now, let's just call it what it is. It feels like another year of the Dodgers, kind of like wading their way to the postseason, and then we're going to say, oh, they'll just pick it up at that point. I guess the only difference between this Dodgers team and all of the other Dodgers teams, because they've had a lot of pitching injuries again in years past too, is they do have Ohtani this time around. So maybe that will be the difference. And if one man can make a difference, it would be him. But I have to say, it certainly feels like LA is headed down the same road that they have in years past, except for they have an equalizer in Shohei.
A chance to clinch, but Walker Buehler is on the bump. Part of the pitching plague for LA. 1-6 with a 5.63 ERA this year. Craig Mish, if they do clinch the division tonight, it would be the 11th time in the last 12 MLB seasons the Dodgers have won the National League West. Craig, we appreciate it. See you on Newswire in just about 40 minutes. More baseball breakdowns here next.
Right here with you on Pro Football Today on SportsGrid. Odds in motion, trying to see what lines have moved throughout the week.
Never felt more comfortable in this set than I do for this year. I am ready. I'm just getting angry. The hot takes are going to be here all long, people. What in the world is going on in Miami, Dom?
It's not particularly anything to shy away from just because many people are on top of it.
Hot take, hot take. I think this line is asking you once again to take New Orleans.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
Simply put, the only way to bet this is over/under win total. I love Tyronn Lue. I think he's one of the 5 best coaches in the league. But my dear friend George Sorless told us to me a long time ago, you can't win if you don't got the talent. Unfortunately, I don't think the Clippers have the talent to match up.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Brian Dable has been feeling it. He's in a foul mood. He's having stare downs with Pat Leonard and everything else.
John Mara wants Brian Dable to go and get the next quarterback. They tried to get the next quarterback. We all watched it on Hard Knocks. They couldn't end up with Daniels. They couldn't end up with May. So they said, okay, we'll run it back a year. We'll go get Neighbors, and we'll tolerate.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
All right, the final week of this MLB regular season. We break down some baseball on this Thursday. A ton of day baseball as teams got to get out this afternoon or into the early evening hours and head to their final weekend set of the year. Donnie, a focus on the American League wildcard chase as of this moment. Kansas City needed to go into Washington, take care of business against the Nats in D.C. It's what they have done so far. They have won the opening 2 games of this set. The Nationals have not scored a single run in this series. Michael Wacha gets the nod today. KC minus 172, road favorite in the nation's capital. 8.5 is the total. Does KC complete the sweep over Washington this week?
I mean, they should be able to, because it looks like the Walking Dead truly is the Washington Nationals at the plate. They don't even get base hits, let alone score runs at this point. So we're saying, all right, yes, you're supposed to win. But here's the issue that we have. Patrick Corbin isn't a great pitcher. We do know that. But if we are looking at Patrick Corbin over the past 60 days, Ben, I got 18 pitchers on the mound today that qualify. Corbin actually comes in as a top 5, so he's not bad. But also, look at this from a Kansas City number versus left-handed pitching over the past month. You have Tommy Pham, Bobby Witt, Salvador Perez, Yuri Gurriel, Fermin, let's just say Renfroe, Garcia, Hampson, and Isbell is the anticipated lineup tonight. Only one guy is at an average. Hunter Renfroe at 176 is an ISO. Everybody else is almost at a 0 number. So for a team that needs to win, going up against a left-handed pitcher that's pitching much better on the season lately than the beginning of the year, this is actually a tough matchup. But again, I'm not going to say that Kansas City can't win, but if we're looking from a Washington perspective, they don't score. So this game probably, once again, will be an under, Ben.
Yeah, we've seen 1-0 in extras for KC on Tuesday, 3-0 yesterday. It was a reliever game after Michael Lorenzen exited the game early, and the Nats still were able to compile 2 base knocks. That is it. Some day baseball in Detroit. The Tigers remain red hot. 4 straight wins, 7 of their last 8, and booked as a minus 166 favorite today against Tampa. Reese Olson, what a compelling pitcher this year for the Tigers. The total is 8. DRS, Detroit lost 15 of Olson's first 18 starts this year, despite the fact that Olson has a 3.48 ERA. They have won his last 5. Will it be 6 in a row when Olson gets the start for the Tigers today in the Motor City?
I think we're looking at an under again, but take a look at Tyler Alexander, the left-handed pitcher pitching for the Rays today. Once again, Ben, 18 pitchers on the card today, rated last 60 days, 20 innings minimum pitched. You know his number 17, it's Tyler Alexander. His ERA, 4.60, not good enough. His xFIP number is over 5. You should be able to hit if you're Detroit. But once again, here's the crux of the argument. You're looking at a left-handed pitcher. In the last 30 days, how has Detroit looked against left-handed pitching? Not good at all. If we're just using weighted on-base percentages here of the first 6 guys in that lineup, where you need to have typically, Ben, a minimum of 325 or over, which means average and doing your job, or anything higher than that is an elite hitter. 248, 115, 250, 265, 094, and 254 going up against left-handed pitching. I do think Detroit is going to win this game, but at the same time, this one, yes, it's staying under also.
I like that look. 8 is the total. How about the Twins in the rubber match in Minneapolis? David Festa is a minus 250 favorite against Miami. Total is 8.5. The Marlins pulled the upset in Game 1. Had an early 3-zip lead yesterday in the Twin Cities before Minnesota rallied, and they needed to. DRS since August 25th, when the Twins were 15 games above 500. They are 10-19. Can they win this series that they must have against the Marlins?
You take a look at the pitcher on the mound tonight, Valente Bolozzo, Mazovi Valente Boso on the mound tonight. Why? Because he's got a 5.72 xFIP number over the past 60 days. Come on now, wake up. But also, here we go again. You should be able to crush this pitcher. But look at the Twins over the past month against right-handed pitching. Every single batter in that lineup below what you need to be. Like an ISO power number 165, 175 or higher, that's average. Every single batter tonight against right-handed pitching is below that. So even though it's a bad pitcher, you need a good lineup to try to expose that. If we flip it over to the other side and say, okay, Festa's on the mound, pitching much better than when he first was brought up to the major leagues. But look at this lineup for Miami tonight. Outside of Xavier Edwards leading off as a bad ISO and a bad weighted on base percentage, against right-handed pitching, the next 7 batters, all positive ISO power numbers. This is a game the Twins have to win. But last night fell into that 3-0 hole and pulled it out because how bad the Marlins were on defense. The pitching matchup is kind of quirky tonight. And I can't say, though, let me take the Marlins again, because clearly they quit in the field. But this is a game you need to win. And I'm not so sure you can say Bolozzo's on the mound and we'll blow them up, because their hitting has been equally as terrible.
A couple of significant stories today. It's the final game in Oakland for the A's. They host Kumar Rocker and the Rangers as a home underdog. The prop perspective for Thursday Night Football next.
right here with you on Pro Football Today on SportsGrid. Odds in motion, trying to see what lines have moved throughout the week.
Never felt more comfortable in this set than I do for this year. I am ready. I'm just getting angry. The hot takes are going to be here all long, people. What in the world is going on in Miami, Dom?
It's not particularly anything to shy away from just because many people are on top of it.
Hot take, hot take.
I think this line is asking you once again to take New Orleans.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
Simply put, the only way to bet this is over under win total. I love Tyronn Lue. I think he's one of the 5 best coaches in the league. But my dear friend George Sorless told us to me a long time ago, you can't win if you don't got the talent. Unfortunately, I don't think the Clippers have the talent to match up.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Brian Dable has been feeling it. He's in a foul mood. He's having stare downs with Pat Leonard and everything else.
John Mara wants Brian Dable to go and get the next quarterback. They tried to get the next quarterback. We all watched it on Hard Knocks. They couldn't end up with Daniels. They couldn't end up with May. So they said, okay, we'll run it back a year. We'll go get Neighbors, and we'll tolerate.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
The prop perspective for Thursday Night Football to kick off Week 4 of this NFL season with none other than SportsGrid's Tom Vecchio. Vecchio, as always, we appreciate your time. Thank you for being here to get us set for TNF. You'll be on the pregame show to get us ready for Thursday Night Football later across the Spiz Grizz network. We appreciate the time, as always.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, certainly an interesting game tonight. I want to say this is like a borderline put up or shut up for the Cowboys, as they would be staring down 1-3. It doesn't really matter that much for the Giants. I'm just looking for continued big usage for Malik Neighbors. I'm ready to roll tonight. I'm not sure we're in for the most exciting game, but I have some props I'm ready to get to.
Third short week Thursday Night Football game of the year, all divisional duels. Second consecutive in East Rutherford, New Jersey at MetLife. Vecchio, you mentioned what is at stake tonight. The Giants an underdog for a 19th consecutive game. They've been a dog 19 of 20 games since the start of last year, but not bad covering numbers, 9-9-1 against the spread. But the line has worked to Dallas. Now a 5.5-point number in favor of the Cowboys. Put up or shut up time to make a statement. I would agree. Is that why you believe the line is working to Dallas?
I do. I think this game has to be a course correction for their defense. They have been, as everyone knows, the past 2 weeks just abused left and right on defense. Kamara, the rushing game from Henry and Lamar Jackson last week, you name it. That has to be the focus. Despite I think that has to be a focus for our defense. I still like Singletary this week. I still think we're going to hit the under, and this game has to be drawn out. Like I think the Cowboys need to slow this game down, and if they try to get into a shootout, or it turns into a shootout, they don't want to get into a shootout, but if it turns into a shootout, things are going to go really bad really quickly for them.
If we take a look at the Dallas Cowboys here, Tom, and try to line up their offense, we've seen it in the press. Ben and I have talked about it multiple times this morning already. Dak Prescott saying we were unprofessional on offense this past weekend. That has to get corrected. And also CeeDee Lamb at his own press conference, basically calling himself out, saying he has to be better. What can we look forward tonight from that Dallas Cowboys offense, particularly from a Dak Prescott perspective? His passing prop, 256.5. Touchdowns over 1.5 at that minus 146 price now. An interception at minus 114. What are we looking at from a Dallas perspective, particularly with Dak Prescott?
I think this has to be a classic Dak to CD game. Early and often, get him 10, 12 targets, get him over that 100-yard mark, get him a touchdown. I don't want to say like they have to quiet the critics, but the contract talks coming into the season, the sideline thing from last week, like you said, like they need to be more professional as a team, individually. Get the ball early and often to CD your best player, operate as rationally as possible, leave yourself out of third and long, like do everything the right way, cover the number, keep the defense in check, keep Malik Neighbors in check if you can possibly can, and win this game if they want to course correct on their season.
So let's now go to the New York Giants. In Vecchio, you see Daniel Jones's number. It's humble in comparison to Dak, 199.5. But in the only win for the G-Men this year, last year in Cleveland, he went over this number, well over 2 bills. His favorite target has been Malik Neighbors, the top target in the National Football League with 37 of them so far through 3 weeks. That's the rookie wideout out of LSU, Malik Neighbors. How would you describe this connection so far between Danny Dimes and Neighbors through the first 3 weeks?
It's been nothing short of amazing. And granted, I'm not very high on Daniel Jones long term. I wasn't high on him coming into the season. Obviously, Neighbors is a phenomenal talent. I'm going to say now that Neighbors is approaching what I say in the NBA when it comes to like an Antetokounmpo or a Doncic, where you don't take unders on him. If you want to go to one of his props, you take the over. I'm not saying I'm going to take the over every single time, but I'm not willing to take an under on a player that's going to command a 35% target share that has this much skill and especially the Giants defense continues to be bad. They're going to be constantly forced into these passing game scripts, and Neighbors is going to see 10 plus targets every single week, regardless of how good the defense may be. He's going to get yards. So I'm just not willing to take an under on him at all.
If we look at also from a tight end perspective here, Jake Ferguson, 4.5 catches, 42.5 yards. How do you deal with a player that was explosive last week, talking about a lot of targets coming in direction, but also from the game flow perspective where he was down late in the game and getting a lot of targets? How does that transfer over to a game where you don't expect to be down late in the third quarter, the fourth quarter by 2 touchdowns to the Giants on a guy like Jake Ferguson?
Right. I think Ferguson's a good talent. And like you said, the game script against the Ravens poured directly into his usage. That's why he was getting so yards. I'm a little hesitant, especially on a short week. You know, he missed 2 weeks ago when he was dealing with that knee injury after week 1 against the Browns. So I'm generally a little hesitant on players that I think are good, but ultimately they're secondary options in the offense. And then the short week, the injury. So I would stay away from Ferguson. Again, if we look directly, that game script influenced him having a lot of yards. So it's kind of just a move on for me. And if I miss out on an opportunity to take it over, so be it. We can, of course, we could just look at the change in things next week, I would say is the best way to go about it.
Vecchio, the ground game has been a major concern for the Cowboys to start this year on both sides of the football. Offensively, 3rd worst in the NFL, running for less than 74 yards per game. Defensively, after giving up 274 to Derrick Henry, Lamar Jackson, and the flock last week, they are the worst rushing defense in the National Football League, allowing nearly 186 yards per game on the ground. How does that influence how you approach the prop market for both Cowboys and the Giants in terms of that ground game?
Yeah, when it comes to the Cowboys, A, they're not running the ball well, and B, they're not stopping the run. And I think we look to running backs on both sides. So Zeke, I particularly like him under 7.5 rush attempts, which is sitting at minus 120. He's not being effective when he's out there. Also, we're seeing a very split backfield with Rigo Dow in the mix. Also, Deuce Vaughn isn't playing a whole lot, but he's taking a few, touches here or there. And given how bad the Cowboys defense has been, if they fall behind, Zeke does not play a part in the passing game. So he will literally not be on the field. We have seen his snaps decline over the last 3 weeks when they're playing from behind. So I can't possibly go to Zeke, who I just think is being ineffective, under 3 yards per carry this season. So just not a player, I should say over the last 2 weeks, not a player I'm willing to go to. And then on the other side, Devin Singletary has been awesome. He's averaging just over 17 total touches per game. He is involved in the passing game and the rushing game. Tyrone Tracy really isn't an issue. We're seeing Devin Singletary play on over 70% of the snaps. Like, this is the game to get him the ball and continue to exploit the Dallas defense of what they've struggled with so much. So over 80.5 rushing plus receiving for Singletary.
All right, some top props there for Tom. Also, Major League Baseball in full swing here. West Coast tonight, San Diego taking on Los Angeles, Musgrove, and Bueller. Slight price here, minus 116. What do we got? What do you mean, whoa? We just gave
the top props.
We did the props. Yeah.
But, Donnie, I thought
we're getting heat in the background right here.
I thought you were going to – I mean, Donnie did a good job of hosting, but I thought Donnie was going to highlight the very top prop there, DRS. That's probably why you missed it. You don't even know who the guy is.
Yeah, hold on. You know what? Let's reset this here. Theo Johnson, is that – well, forget about your prop on this. Is that a real guy? Can you make sure, Tom Vecchio, that we're not betting and playing
That's a real player.
Go ahead.
That's a real player. He is a 4th-round pick from Penn State. Their rookie tight end. under 13.5 receiving yards for him. He has a 7.1 target share. That's fifth on the team. Through the first 3 weeks, he has 2 catches for 31 yards in the 3 games. So he's literally not involved in the passing offense. He's playing on a good amount of snaps, but again, he's just not a passing option. When it comes to the Giants, it's going to Malik Neighbors, it's going to Wan'Dale Robinson, and then it's going to Singletary. So under 13.5 for Theo Johnson.
Listen, he's a big boy. He's 6'6", 260 from Winnipeg, but Donnie doesn't like him, and neither does Tom, at least in terms of his receiving yards number tonight. I feel like Donnie actually doesn't like the individual. Tom just doesn't like the props. All right, Vecchio, 2 spots to clinch tonight. The Dodgers in L.A., the Yankees in the Bronx. New York has failed the last 2 nights. The Dodgers, with a win over San Diego yesterday, a chance to clinch tonight. Will both teams get it done on this Thursday?
Don't have faith in the Dodgers because Walker Buehler has been downright terrible. I'm looking to Garrett Cole. They're going up against the Orioles, actually, Corbin Burns. So under 8 in that game. I'm probably looking at Garrett Cole over on outs if you can find it. I haven't seen it listed. The Yankees bullpen has kind of been taxed over the past 2 games, so they just need him to go deeper into the game tonight.
Tom Vecchio does it all. He's the jack of all trades. You'll see him tonight getting you set for Thursday Night Football on SportsGrid. Vecchio, talk to you later. Thanks for being here. More around TEL next.
Right here with you on Pro Football Today on SportsGrid. Odds in motion, trying to see what lines have moved throughout the week.
Never felt more comfortable in this set than I do for this year. I am ready. I'm just getting angry. The hot takes are going to be here all long, people. What in the world is going on in Miami, Don?
It's not particularly anything to shy away from just because many people are on top of it.
Hot take, hot take. I think this line is asking you once again to take New Orleans.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
Simply put, the only way to bet this is over under win total. I love Tyronn Lue. I think he's one of the 5 best coaches in the league. But my dear friend George Sorless told us to me a long time ago, you can't win if you don't got the talent. Unfortunately, I don't think the Clippers have the talent to match up.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Brian Dable has been feeling it. He's in a foul mood. He's having stare downs with Pat Leonard and everything else.
John Mara wants Brian Dable to go and get the next quarterback. They tried to get the next quarterback. We all watched it on Hard Knocks. They couldn't end up with Daniels. They couldn't end up with May. So they said, okay, we'll run it back a year. We'll go get Neighbors, and we'll tolerate.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Thursday Night Football at MetLife Stadium between the Giants and the Cowboys, and maybe a thought or two across the Hudson, up in the Bronx from Donnie Wright's side on the Yankees, trying to clinch the American League East tonight against the Orioles. All of that in our final segment together for this week. And before we send Donnie to the money line as well. Let's start Thursday Night Football. DRS, 5.5-point spread in favor of the Cowboys. The over-under stands at 45 and a hook. Both you and I are not really loving laying it with the Cowboys, and over or an under. We're more focused on the prompts. We'll get there in just a second. But how do you think the game flow looks like tonight in East Rutherford?
I think from an aggressive standpoint, I think the Dallas Cowboys are always going to stay aggressive, which means downfield passing game. They have the guys to beat that secondary, which includes CeeDee Lamb. You want to get your quarterback in rhythm early. That's Dak Prescott, specifically after we told you multiple times today that offense did not look good the past 2 weeks. And who cares if you're throwing for close to 400 yards when you're getting blown out? You want to start that in the first quarter, second quarter, and third quarter and hand the football off in the fourth quarter, because that means you have a decisive lead at that point. So I'm looking for a big first half out of the Dallas Cowboys. From a Giants perspective, it's probably the opposite, right? You're not really going to push all that much tempo. You just want to make the plays, move the sticks, see how long you can hang in this game to keep it close. You kept it close in Cleveland, you won. You kept it close in Washington, you didn't have a kicker, so a default loss there. You didn't really keep it all that close against Minnesota because you were turning the football over. So from my perspective, I do expect a good performance out of the Dallas Cowboys right off the bat, staying aggressive here, Ben.
Dallas, one of two teams along with the Ravens that have played all 3 games to the over this year. The Cowboys over by nearly double digits, 9.8 points per game, but scoring has been at a premium. The Giants, one of 8 teams entering week 4 that has been under in all 3. If they had a kicker, who knows what would have happened outside the nation's capital. But DRS, they were a 1.5-point underdog in each of their first 2 games. Losses. The Giants are part of this phenomenon that we have seen to start 2024, the year of the underdog. When they were a 6.5-point dog last week in Cleveland and won handily outright. They are a 5.5-point underdog now. Underdogs of 5.5 points or greater this year. Now 14-2 ATS, 10 outright wins. Dallas as a road favorite since the start of 2023, 4-1 against the spread, covering by an average margin of more than 8 points per game. But still, don't love the feel of tonight. The Giants an underdog for a 19th consecutive game. Let's talk about that passing attack. You have brought this up a ton. Dak Prescott has taken the blame. CeeDee Lamb has looked in the mirror and owned up to his poor play, at least production-wise, so far throughout this season. How many yards does Dak Prescott throw for tonight at MetLife?
Yeah, I do think he has a chance to go over the 256.5. I would have loved it much more if the Dallas Cowboys were on the road, Ben, as the underdog, because then you're theoretically saying we got to stay and hit that gas all night to try to have an upset. I think there's a good chance that they will be handing off in the fourth quarter. You know what else is an interesting wager here? You got 201 for Daniel Jones now, by the way. When we opened the show, Ben, that was 199.5, so some movement there. How about this? We've talked about it all morning, how explosive these 2 wide receivers can be. Malik Neighbors on the one side for the Giants and CeeDee Lamb for the Dallas Cowboys. How about this market at the FanDuel Sportsbook? Player longest pass tonight. Daniel Jones, 32.5. Dak Prescott, 36.5. There's a good chance both of them can go over that, because if you do throw to these wideouts, it might be a 15-yard in route. They're both electric with the football in their hands to make up that next 20 to 25 yards to cross over that total. So that's interesting. For me, also, player passing touchdowns. You know, we've said it multiple times. I mean, over 1.5 touchdown passes for Dak. In what world tonight do the Dallas Cowboys win this football game and he throws for less than 2 touchdown passes? So how many times do I use this in baseball, Ben? I don't want to lay the minus 225 on a favorite here, but I guarantee you that offense is going to score more than 4 to 5 runs tonight, and I'll take that at like a much less price. So money line on the Cowboys is expensive. Taking the over 1.5 touchdowns, not as expensive as that money line. That might be the best way to go, because if they run it in 4 times tonight, stop it. He's throwing 2 touchdowns. No.
It's not going to happen, at least with the ground game Dallas has displayed in its opening 3. Minus 260 money line for the Cowboys. A lot of juice on the over of 1.5 passing touchdowns, but only minus 168 in relative comparison. And DRS, if the passing game is going to be good, by the way, Dak Prescott, 100 or more yards in the opening half. Through the air, minus 105. If you think he gets close to 256, but most of it happens early, that's a good look. He is the NFL's leading passer. He threw for 379 last week and more than 290 week 2 against the Saints. But a lot of that was because Dallas was trailing by so much and had to add it up through the air. Malik Neighbors, 72.5, his receiving yards prop. CeeDee Lamb around that number as well, both 6.5 for their receptions. Let's flip it over to the ground game as well. Dallas has been bad on both sides. Devin Singletary has scored each of the past 2 games. Donnie, if you had a favorite prop for tonight in terms of the skill position playmaker players, where are you looking?
You know what's funny about that, too? If you're looking from the running back position, I do think Ezekiel Elliott has a low price at 26.5. Also, if you're looking for a touchdown prop to get down by the goal line, you know he's going to be that guy that's going to get the football. Thursday night in New York, the bigger players tend to shine. I'm not even saying that Ezekiel Elliott is anywhere near what he was 5-6 years ago as one of the more dominant running backs in the NFL. But those price points are so low. Like, put it this way. If there's one running back you're going to take a look at rushing yards on the ground, is it Singletary to get into the mid-60s? Not for me. Is it Rico Dowdle, who I don't even know technically is a starter in name at this point? It's probably Ezekiel Elliott at 26.5. If you tell me right now that the Dallas Cowboys are going to win this game, which they're favored to do, and Zeke gets 5 carries tonight, it's a pretty good chance he gets over to 26.5.
Yeah, it would be interesting, right? The Cowboys' backfield has been a disaster to start. Is it Deuce Vaughn? Is it Rico Dowdle? Is it the ghost of Ezekiel Elliott? We shall see. And you would expect the G-men to take advantage on the ground offensively. That remains to be seen. All right, quickly, DRS. Again, across the Hudson, up to the Bronx. The Yankees looking to clinch the American League East. Now, minus 146 is the money line price you got to lay for Garrett Cole and New York to get it done tonight. Is it worth the wager?
I do think it's worth the wager, but also keep in mind as well, this is pure playoff mode for both of these teams. Now, granted, you're looking at the Orioles saying like, we can hold off another day longer, but Corbin Burns is not going to go out there and say, well, it's no big deal if I give up 9 runs and blast my ERA. He's going to want to have a good performance tonight. So maybe even more than I think that the Yankees will win. What's that total? Sitting around 8 right now? I don't think they get the 9 runs tonight in the Bronx. That's probably going to stay under. But I do think the Yankees get the win tonight, pop those champagne bottles, get ready for this weekend, and on you go to the playoffs.
My friend, have a great time on the money line. I'll talk to you next week. More on the early line up next with some college football talk.
Right here with you on Pro Football Today on SportsGrid. Odds in motion, trying to see what lines have moved throughout the week.
Never felt more comfortable in this set than I do for this year. Brady, I'm just getting angry. The hot takes are going to be here all season long, people. What in the world is going on in Miami, Donnie?
It's not particularly anything to shy away from just because many people are on top of it.
Hot take, hot take.
I think this line is asking you once again to take New Orleans.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
Simply put, the only way to bet this is over-under win total. I love Tyronn Lue. I think he's one of the 5 best coaches in the league. But my dear friend George Sorlis told us to me a long time ago, you can't win if you don't got the talent. Unfortunately, I don't think the Clippers have the talent to match up.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Brian Dable has been feeling it. He's in a foul mood. He's having stare downs with Pat Leonard and everything else.
John Mara wants Brian Dable to go and get the next quarterback. They tried to get the next quarterback. We all watched it on Hard Knocks. They couldn't end up with Daniels. They couldn't end up with May. So they said, okay, we'll run it back a year. We'll go get neighbors, and we'll tolerate.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Let's get you set not only for week 4 of this 2024 NFL season, but week number 5 of the 2024 college football campaign. It starts on this Thursday with a showdown in the American in Philadelphia. Temple hosts Army, and not just the armed forces, but an undefeated Black Knight squad enters Philadelphia tonight. Army under Jeff Monken, a perfect 3-8 They are also 3-0 against the number, one of 13 FBS programs to cover in every single game so far this season. As you might expect, out of the cadets, where running the football is a must. They are the second best rushing offense in the country, averaging 356 yards per game on the ground. How many are they throwing for? Less than 74. It does not matter. The Black Knights, a 12.5-point favorite against a Temple team that's not very good, but at least 2-2 against the spread now, having covered a couple of times this year. But again, Army looks really good. There is a chance that Army, favored tonight, laying 12.5 points, starts 4-0. Navy is a slight favorite against UAB on Saturday. The Midshipmen laying 3.5 against the Blazers. If Army wins and Navy wins, it would be the first time since 1945 that both of these two service academies have started off a college football season unbeaten. 4-0. 1945, also the end of World War II, a good time for the military, both on the football field and off of it. Again, Temple, 12.5-point dog tonight. Keep an eye on the total. A lot of steam. Opened at 44.5, now 47 and a hook on this Thursday. Army in short week football games. In their last 17, 14 of them to the over. I bet the number 2 days ago at 45 and a hook. And how about this doubleheader of conference action on a Friday? Miami unbeaten to start this year, and boy, do they look good. Cam Ward, the second leading passer in college football, more than 400 last week against South Florida. He remains the Heisman Trophy favorite, and Miami is laying 19.5 against Virginia Tech tomorrow night at home. We thought this game could have been really close to start the year. Vodtech opened around a 7.5, 8.5-point underdog for the early look at this game in the summer months. It's now 19 and a hook. Virginia Tech has not been what people expected. Upset as a 2-touchdown favorite week 1 against Vandy, laying more than 3 against Rutgers last week in Lane Stadium. Of course, I told you bet the Scarlet Knights, and Rutgers did win outright. The key is Kyron Drones. Can he have success against a good Miami front seven so far this year? The Canes, 3-1 against the number, but the only time they did not cover against Florida A&M, they didn't cover by about 1.5 points as a 49.5-point favorite, winning that game by nearly 50. And then how about those Scarlet Knights laying 2.5 at home tomorrow against Washington? Big Ten opener for the Gers as they take on Washington, who was good last week in Seattle, covering as an 11.5-point favorite against Northwestern. The ground game is crucial for Rutgers. Kyle Monungai against Jonah Coleman, who followed his head coach Jed Fish over. He's one of the leading 10 rushers in college football as well. Here is something that you might not understand. Rutgers is one of 5 FBS programs to start each of the past 4 seasons 3-0. In that span, since the start of 2021, Rutgers as a favorite, 13-5 against the spread. It's the 3rd best cover percentage in the country in college football in the last 3+ years. But Ben, Rutgers is not all that good. Well, they were an underdog for a lot of their Big Ten games against the likes of Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, and they would not win those. But as a favorite, when expected to win, they're laying 2.5 tomorrow in Piscataway. They have been darn good. Again, the ground game is important. The Scarlet Knights have not been nearly as good defensively, stopping the run as we maybe expected entering this year. A tough test tomorrow against the Huskies. And then I will just finish with this. We mentioned some significance around MLB, the second to last series, and a lot of spots today coming to a close at the Oakland Coliseum, the final game the Athletics will ever play in Oakland. Next year they head to Sacramento. Should be an emotional atmosphere today by the Bay. And the White Sox have staved off history. Last night, walking it off in extras, courtesy of Andrew Benintendi, but a home underdog on the South Side today with one more loss. The White Sox set the modern record for the most losses with 121 since 1900 in MLB. A Football Friday, the early line, 8 a.m. Eastern tomorrow.